Hey everyone, it's Movie Lover 120 here, and I'm here with a brand new franchise ranking. And this franchise ranking, I don't own the movies per se, but I have seen them, and I do remember everything about them. And this franchise ranking is going to be for the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series. Now, let me clarify. I think some of you probably know when I commented that I'm not a big fan of the Wimpy Kid series. I'm going to clarify that comment. I'm not a fan of the books that are made today. I'm a fan of the older books, like books 1 to 5, but that's about it. But I am actually kind of a big fan of the movies. That's what I will clarify about my earlier statement a few months ago. So yeah, I'm going to be ranking all 4 of the movies. Well, the movies I like are just the first 3 movies anyways, if you know what I mean. So, yeah. Before they were all movies, there were these books about this very rude, not rude, I mean, kind of more pessimistic middle schooler who kind of has a very rough life and goes through a lot of misfortunes and has like one best friend, is never popular in school, has a family that practically neglects him, has these 2 brothers that get him in trouble. That's pretty much what the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series kind of basically is. Basically, this middle schooler going through misfortunes and never win. You're trying to commit these like bad schemes and never winning in the end. Kind of like something like those cartoon shows about those anti-protagonist comedy protagonists. Think of it like that, except a family-friendly version of those. But anyway, on to the film series. Eventually, around 3 years after the first book got published, a movie was announced. A live-action movie was announced for release in March 2010. And the film was released and, well, sure, not liked by critics, but it was pretty liked by fans of the book. It's considered actually pretty faithful to the book, with a few little minor changes. Basically, yeah, another concept about the books is that middle schooler who's named Greg Heffley actually writes about his misfortunes in this what he claims to be a journal, but it's actually a diary. Apparently, he clarifies it's a journal. So yeah, he writes all about everything that goes on in his miserable life in every time he gets a journal, in every book. But anyway, on to the film. The plot is that middle school is not an enjoyable experience for preteen Greg Heffley, but a horrid ordeal of social landmines that he must bear. To do so, he devises schemes to win him the recognition and status he feels he deserves, all of which fail miserably. Greg chronicles his misadventures, thoughts, and opinions in a diary to prepare for the day that he will no longer have to put up with nonsense. Now, I'd consider this one the 3rd best. Probably, although the weakest of the first 3. The original trilogy. For the films, anyways. And here's why. Why is that? Why is it still good, though? Well, like that, it's faithful to the book while making the characters more human. They are portrayed in Greg's journals in the books, especially like with Frank Heffley being a big example of this. And the cartoon aspect from the book series is very well animated. I like how it's still animated like the characters in the books. In the humor, instead of using the typical toilet humor usually seen in these types of films, this time they use character interactions instead for the main source of humor, and it works very well. There's plenty of funny and heartwarming moments. It delivers strong messages about friendship. Especially probably the funniest scene in the movie is then when Roderick finally gets punished for owning this very offensive magazine that's apparently offensive towards women. I remember the whole theater laughing at the part when Susan Heffley found that magazine of Roderick since Greg hid it in the pillowcase to get Roderick in trouble. and even the scenes actually ended a funny way. Like in the book, like Roger has to kind of actually write lines on the sheet, but however, this is during a band rehearsal. He's confronted over it, and Roger ends up saying, like, kind of like in the book, "I'm sorry, woman." The other band members cheer for him, but technically in the book, much like the book, Manny actually the reason why the magazine gets discovered is because Manny finds it in the pillowcase with a Tootsie Roll, and in the book, Manny bought it for show and tell, but here he kind of just gets it out of the pillowcase, so yeah. It's a little bit somewhat different, and it's also very great acting, especially the scene where Roderick tells Greg and Riley the story about the Devil Worshipper Woods, and of course, Zachary Gordon does a great performance as Greg Halfley. Same goes for Robert Capron as Riley Devin Bostic as Roderick. Now for the bad qualities. There's still some unnecessary gross out scenes here and there. There's a number of product placement from Nintendo, Blue Sky Studios, Post Cereals, Crest Toothpaste, Snickers, among others. Some mean-spirited moments here and there. Like Roderick threatening Greg and Riley to death just because they go in his room and touch the stuff, and then the antagonists of the film are delinquent Pete Hosey threatening Riley to eat the cheese near the end of the movie. And Roderick has no connection to delinquent Peter Hosey, who is much worse than him, and the film's popularity list as well. While it is an intelligent gag in regards to popularity in high school, it's a bad message for young viewers, and it makes look that being popular is the most important thing in high school, and that you should not associate with those who enjoy zero popularity to not ruin your reputation. Which is kind of why Greg is mostly a jerk throughout the film, but another thing about Greg, they actually make him relatable, and he's much more likable than he is in the books. Yeah, he's still a jerk here and there, but he's much better than the books, really. Although to be fair, his unlikable behavior in the books is kind of meant to be funny. He's not really supposed to be a likable protagonist, since, in a way, but his unlikableness in the books is actually kind of funny and enjoyable in the books. But yeah, I'd rank this one a 7 out of 10. That's why I'd rank the first one. But then, a year after the first one, we got actually my favorite Diary of a Wimpy Kid film, and that, of course, would have to be Diary of a Wimpy Kid: Roderick Rules, which would later go on to be released around March 25th, 2011, in theaters. And I gotta say, I think I like this one much more than the first one. I'm gonna get to why, but first I'm gonna say what this one's about. Well, once summer vacation ends, Greg Halfley is back in middle school, and his older brother Roderick must deal with, and him and his older brother this year, Roderick, must deal with their parents' misguided attempts to have them bond. Yeah, like I said, this is my favorite film in the of the first three. My favorite of the first three, my favorite film in the series overall. And here's why it rocks. Well, much like the first film, it's very faithful to the source material and captures the tone of the book very well while altering the characters to make them seem more human, unlike how they were portrayed in Greg's journal in the books. Much like the first film, the humor relies on character interactions rather than cheap toilet humor, and it works. Some very new and interesting characters like Raisin Love interest Dolly Hills, who actually gets way more development, who's more of an actually properly developed character than she is in the books, doesn't really have much use in the books, so they kind of improve her way better in the films. And unlike in the books, Greg and Roderick actually develop chemistry, and while Roderick may still be kind of a jerk, his character portrayal in the film along with the next film I'm going to get to in a bit leads him towards him acting like a cool brother to Greg, to the point where he doesn't even bully him anymore. So I kind of like that they made Roderick more likable in this movie. He's actually my favorite character in this trilogy. I'm not gonna lie. And there's actually one of the very few times where Susan Halfley, who's mostly known for being the embarrassing parent in the series, actually brings up a very good point about how siblings should be there for one another. So very nice, and the characters are still relatable and likable, specifically Greg, and the cartoon aspect from the book is still spawned, while animated still looks like the cartoon design of the book. Unforgettable and hilarious moments like Like when Greg and Roger gets chased down by Coach Malone for putting that fake vomit on his car when they go out to that gas station. And where Susan Athlete's dancing distracts the audience of the talent show, and then Frankly's ventriloquist act in the same scene. And the friendship between Greg and Raleigh is still unforgettable, and especially let's not forget the nice running gag, aka the invisible Chirag joke. Definitely the best running gag in the film. I think my favorite part of the invisible Chirag joke would have to be the floating corn dog moment. It's actually considered one of those rare sequels that even improves on the original film. The bad qualities, yeah, there's still some bad qualities, like Roderick is still a jerk in some moments, but not as much as he has in the first one. Like, there's still some kind of jerk moments he has when forcing Greg to run around the retirement home in his underwear to read his diary and then kind of humiliating him in front of the church. And he's kind of still the bratty one-dimensional character who gets away with his wrongdoings because, well, he's only 3, which is kind of a poor lesson to teach younger viewers. Granted, he does make a spiked aluminum ball for Greg and apologizes to him for breaking his console, but that gift's kind of dangerous, and actually it proves to be really dangerous because since Greg's forced to keep it, he ends up tossing on his bed, and when him and Riley are filming a skit video, Riley ends up basically sitting on the ball, so it kind of proves to be a very dangerous gift. And despite their intention, I think it's still pretty unfair that Susan Frank forced both Roderick and Greg to stay at their house punched for a night after causing such a mess in the church, when it should have been only Roderick the one punched her, since he basically humiliated him in front of that whole church, and so basically Greg was kind of justified in fighting with Roderick in that church. So yeah. But despite the bad qualities, I'd give this one a 9 out of 10. My favorite of the series. Favorite of the film series anyways, and my favorite of the original trilogy. But then of course, a year after, not in March 2012, this time it was thrown to August 3rd, 2012, which would make sense because this one's set during the summer. And this film was actually not called The Last Straw like the third book was called. This one actually got the 4th book's title, Dog Days. So yeah, I'd say this one. Now let's get on to my, we're now going to get on to my second favorite film in the series, and that is Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Dog Days, released on August 3rd, 2012. That was once again directed by David Bowers, who directed the previous movie, Roderick Rules. The summary for this one is that school has wrapped up, summer vacation's on, but Greg may not have the best summer vacation ever, but what could go wrong? That's the plot of the film. And here's why. And like I said, I consider this one my second favorite of the series, and here's why. It's the third installment of the film franchise and still manages to stay loyal to the source material very well. It leaves no continuity errors or last minute changes and actually occurs not too long after the events of the second movie, which was very nice. 2. It kind of starts off with the very last week of 7th grade for Greg and his class, so I'm glad they kind of continued it from there. And of course, the cartoon aspect the film takes from the book is amazing and still looks as if it were drawn by Jeff Kinney himself. Greg and Roderick's friendship from the previous film continues in this film. I like how they didn't just ditch it and put them back to their big bully brother instincts like in the first one. They still continued their good developed friendship like in Roderick Rules. Especially unlike in the books where Roderick just aggressively bullies him. This time he no longer does in this film, and I really like that. There's still some brilliant acting, especially from Zachary Gordon, Robert Kaplan, and Devin Bostick. There's a very interesting subplot about Roderick developing a crush on Holly's bratty older sister, Heather. The scenes are incredibly funny and memorable, like the scene when Greg and Riley go on the cranium shaker, which, by the way, guys, another thing about this whole trilogy, first film, Roderick Rules, Dog Days, all were filmed in my area. that's another reason I love the first three, because they were basically all filmed in my area. Like, I could recognize so many spots like the cranium shaker scene and majority of other scenes, and the boardwalk scene, and just a lot of other scenes in general. And where Greg and Riley play tennis with Holly and Patty. It's another pretty incredible, funny, memorable moments. There's also a very heartwarming moment that pretty much tops the book, where Greg's dad, Frank, decides not to send Greg to spag uni, as he recalls how a person should learn from their mistakes. Like the third book, Last Straw, just kind of involves Frank deciding to pay Greg back for getting him out of a birthday party that he didn't want to be at. So yeah, kind of what another thing this third film does is that this third film actually, like the first one, it's basically the first film developed Greg's friendship with Riley, tried to get him to become a better friend. Roger Gross basically better developed Greg's relationship with his brother. This one actually kind of develops his relationship with his father, really, in a way. A little bit of it, so that was another thing I liked about this film. I kind of liked how this one slowly starts to improve his relationship with his dad and everything, which was very nice. And of course, another moment, Greg Heffley, Riley Jefferson, Roderick, and many others are still likable characters and relatable characters like they were before in the first two films. Definitely, the characters are definitely much more likable in the movies than they are in the books, which I kind of like. But like I said, in the books, most of the characters are kind of meant to be unlikable, since it's called Diary of a Wimpy Kid, but yeah. A very decent message for most kids about how they should embrace the outside and get out of the house instead of being indoors all day, especially during summer break. Something I've learned over time, and yeah, especially because since summer's coming up in a few weeks, and I'm definitely probably going to be getting out a lot of times, especially now that I've been kind of partially vaccinated. Bad qualities. Unlike the book, Daphne's pet dog Sweetie isn't the main focus of the movie, and it's more of a subplot that's forgotten about very easily. And this one, they don't really, like in Dog Days, where they eventually give away Sweetie to Greg's grandmother. They don't give him away at all. They basically kind of just keep him, really. There's still some product placement, like the PlayStation Portable, Xbox 360, Coke, UTC, and among others, but I can look past any of the product placement stuff. And that's not for. And of course, I also don't like the infamous scene with where this one dude, where Roderick's trying to get Heather to save him from fake drowning by doing CPR, and just like he get CPR, and of course since Heather Hills is distracted, this one guy ends up doing the job and basically does CPR on Roderick. I thought that was kind of gross. That was a little cringeworthy. I didn't like that part. Like, there's still a bit of gross out humor in 2 and 3 here and there, but it's not like overly relied on like a lot of short films do nowadays. But alright. Now for this film, I would rank this movie an 8 out of 10. Second best of the series, but flaws here and then. Now, and also, this movie, Dog Days should have been the end to the movie series, because I kind of liked how Dog Days ended. Greg's relationships really started to improve. He finally started to have a bit of a happier life. I kind of liked how, wish it just ended here. This would have been a perfect end to the film series. And I think it was meant to be, but no. Instead, we went 5 years later, we went and got the worst Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie. And yeah, I think you can know the title. It's Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Long Haul. And please don't get me started on the hashtag not my Roderick. I'm gonna get to that hashtag in a bit. Oh god. Let's just get this one over with. Yeah. They've basically, first of all, the first bad quality I'm going to mention before I say the plot, this movie claims it's a sequel to Dog Days, even though it's not, barely acts like one at all, because it doesn't have one connection to the first three movies, so it's basically should have just been called a reboot and nobody would even notice. Because, one, this doesn't even have the original cast. Well, not having the original cast come back made sense because, well, they kind of all grew up by that point. The old cast was all grown up now. Especially, the characters in Diary of a Kid, like Ray Catholic, don't really age or pass grades, really. Since Greg Heffley's a middle schooler, not a high schooler, or not even a college student, so getting rid of the original cast sucked, but it also made sense because most of the actors are now way too old for the roles. But the plot of this movie is young Greg Heffley is looking forward to a long summer of just hanging out, but his mother throws a monkey wrench into his plans when she forces the entire family to take a road trip to a relative's birthday celebration. His eyes soon light up after he realizes that the excursion is his ticket to a gaming convention to meet YouTube sensation Mac Digby. Greg's imagination then kicks into overdrive as he sneakily hatches a scheme to attend the expo and gain some deserved fame. Yeah, that's the movie. Oh, great. Here we go. I've already mentioned the not even connection to the first three, but so many other bad qualities I can name are the false advertising. It's said to be the fourth film in the franchise, but in reality, it's more considered its own separate film. Like, Dog Days came out 5 years before this movie, and this movie took like 1 year to make. The new cast members don't even match the roles and appearances of the characters from the previous films. They have lousy chemistry, especially between the Heffley family and other characters. Like, Greg in this movie looks too young to even be a middle schooler. He looks more like an elementary schooler, and Roderick's appearance doesn't even match the books of previous films. This new actor even lacks the proper look Devin Bostick had. Unlike in the previous three films, his personality feels rather fake and one-dimensional. Susan Heffley hardly looks or acts anything like she did in the previous two films. In the first three films, Rachel Harris, her original actress, had brown hair, whereas Alicia Silverstone, aka who's also known for playing the worst Batgirl ever in Batman and Robin, has blonde hair. Rachel Harris put in a good performance and matched the character's personality well, which made her seem like a convincing parent. However, Alicia Silverstone puts in a more threatening and aggressive performance, which not only fails to match the original performance of Rachel Harris, but it makes her seem more like a bully than a parent. Frank Heffley is a really boring character in this adaptation compared to the hilarious performance from Steve Zahn in the first three films, especially considering he was more interesting and much more funnier in the first three films. Manny doesn't even look anything like he does in the first three films, and he somehow now has curly hair for some reason. Manny in the books didn't even have curly hair. It's lazy and unnatural acting, very weak, unoriginal, a poorly executed story that steals elements from films like A Goofy Movie. There's even sequel baiting, like when Susan Heffley mentioned to Greg that they'd be flying for their next vacation, but thankfully this never happened, because since this movie thankfully bombed at the box office. However, that would end up being in one of the other books. While it still uses elements from the books, it focuses more on telling its own story than adopting the story of the book, which the film is based on, which basically is a poor grasp of the source material. Like in the book, they go on a road trip as a vacation, but in this film they go on a road trip of 4 days to visit Mima for her 90th birthday, which Greg thought was unexciting and a waste of time. The scene in the water park from the book is not even present in this film. In Hard Luck, Mima is even rumored to be dead, but in this film she's alive. In the book, the youngest child in the Beardo family is a boy, but in this film it's a girl. And they go to the Corny's restaurant in the book The Third Wheel, not in the original story for this. There's even no comedy or humor in this film, which ruins all the comedic humor from the previous films and books. Basically, this film even panders to teenagers who use their phones a lot, resulting in so many cringeworthy references to outdated memes and apps like Snapchat, something the original three movies and most of the other books barely rely on. Constant reuse of some background extras, very confusing logic in this film, and one scene where Manny even wins this pig, and somehow it's all Greg's fault, even though he's literally trying to prevent the whole situation from happening. Using product placements way too much. In the first three, it was fine, but this one, they just overuse it. What else can I think of? The morals are mostly bad and feel extremely shoved in. It even acts like spending time with your family and taking a break from technology is a problem. With Greg saying we need things like video games and smartphones to survive, which we kind of don't. They're just entertainment stuff for if it's like rainy or something beginning, but they're not built for us to live. The action scenes are even so lame to the point where even the action scenes of the previous films have done better. Even features an interesting chain of events that only serve to pad out the running time. Atrocious CGI for the seagulls. The ending makes no sense and is rather tiresome to sit through. Greg even learns almost nothing in this movie, or the movie did not try to build up the lesson. In the first three, Greg learns to be a better friend, better son, and a better brother. But here, Greg learns literally nothing. And don't even get me started on that. Not my Roderick meme. I know that meme and I really don't like it. Or hashtag, I mean. The redeeming qualities, I guess, are maybe the pastoral music score composed by Edward Shearer. Jeff Kinney does make a cameo appearance in one scene. Most of the Halfleys do realize their flaws at the end and apologize for their behavior. And I guess the 2D animation segments are still well done, though different to accommodate a diorama aesthetic. But all in all, despite those bad qualities, yeah, this film gets a 0 out of 10. This is a 0 out of 10 all the way through. Definitely among one of the worst sequels ever made, one of the worst fourth installments ever made, one of the worst reboots ever made, and definitely among the worst movies of 2017. Then again, 2017 was just a shit year to begin with. But anyway, that's it for me talking about the Diary of a Wimpy Kid films, and here's how I'm going to rank it from best to worst. Number 1 would have to be Roderick Rules. Second place, Dog Days. Third place, the first film. And worst, The Long Haul. That's how I pretty much rank all 4 of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies. Now I want to know in the comment section, how would you rank the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movies? And until then, that'll be your first video. Thank y'all for watching. If you like this and want to see more, then don't forget to like and subscribe to Movie Lover 120.